It's not where you come from, it's where you belong. Nothing I would trade, I wouldn't have it any other way. You're surrounded by love and you're wanted, so never feel alone. You are
Hello. Welcome back to Fostering Legacies. Oh my goodness, it's been a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend for many, and we've had so many things to be grateful for. I am grateful for being here today doing this show, and it's all about really becoming a foster parent. How do you do it? What's that all about? What is it like? And yeah, so let's bring up Steve so that he could also give us a hand.
Hey, Denise, how are you?
Hi, Steve. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. How was
Uh,
your weekend, your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Thanksgiving is about giving back and being with family, and we're able to do both things. And every Thanksgiving morning, we do a food drive, and we collected over 200 pounds of food. We gave away 20 turkeys. We collected a couple of boxes of toys, getting ready for the holidays. But it's also about bringing people together. I heard so many wonderful stories. There was a gentleman that came to me Thanksgiving morning. He said that he missed his mom, an older guy, and he wasn't going to make a turkey, and because he was kind of down. He said, though, I'll take one of your turkeys. I'm going to make it for my mom because I'm thinking about her. And he took one of the turkeys, and I don't know how it came out, but it's about bringing people together, memories, and we do this show, Fostering Legacies, to look back at those memories as foster kids and how other children are at holiday time. And you said how what you're thankful of. I'm thankful that we have this show, that we've come together and share those experiences with everybody out there.
Exactly. I am also thankful for the same thing. I mean, one of the things that I loved about what you're doing is how you are always helping people that lifting up people that are helping the community. The amazing things that you were doing, the drive that you was doing the other day. And when I left, you had already given away 19 turkeys. And I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. 19 families were able to have, some form of a nice dinner so that they could gather around to. And so those are the things that really lights me up and makes me continue to want to do what I do.
It was nice that you kind enough to call in, spend a few moments with us. We had a couple of assembly people from locally here in New York and in the Queens area in Long Island, and having you on the show. We had Landis Sims, who also does a show on the network called Mountain Mover, and he's an amazing young man, and you're an amazing woman, and we've done this show, and I'm so thankful that we're just beginning with this thing, so it's going to reach new heights. But you mentioned about becoming foster parents, because not everybody's cut out to be a foster parent, and we've talked about in other shows that some foster parents get it and some foster parents don't get it. But we're hoping that our goal is to get 100% of the families that become foster parents get it.
Exactly. And there are some trends, in foster care and adoption that are out there. And these trends, actually, when I saw them, they kind of shocked me because I didn't realize how many children just within the United States are affected by foster care. Just in 2020 alone, in care as of September 30th, 391,000 children. 207,000 children entered into foster care that year, and 215 children exited out of foster care. Also, adoption is also on the, table. And just to know that 114,000 children are waited to be adopted is incredible, because I know that there are parents out there, or people out there, that want to be parents. And these are the children that are wanting to have parents. And so these were very shocking statistics.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I, growing up in the foster care system, I never looked at adoption. I never thought about it. I didn't want it to occur because I never really wanted to be in any of the places I was in. I always wanted just to come home, and I felt like I had unfinished business because my mother was ill. And as a young child, you think that you can help and do things that you probably can't do. But at the time, I only wanted to be with her. So if the word adoption came up for me, I would have trouble with that. But I know there's a lot of families, a lot of kids out there that don't have that situation where you kind of go back and forth between a biological parent, and they need a stable home. So adoption is very much needed.
Exactly. And you know what? Just to put it in more perspective, just in 2021 alone, since we're talking about 2021, 65,000 parents' rights were terminated. So those are 65,000 children that either are going to stay in foster care until they're emancipated out, or they get adopted. And so, on the brighter note, 54,000 children were adopted that year. So that's really near and dear to my heart, because when I was in foster care, I don't think I even thought about adoption either. I didn't think it was on the books for me, on the table for me. I know that at a certain age, a lot of times children are, or people find children undesirable to adopt.
Right.
So if you're too old, it's like, well, no, we'll pick the younger one that we could mold into our own image, kind of thing. And so I never had that feeling that adoption was on the table for me. And just to see that 54,000 children were chosen for adoption, had the opportunity to experience that, it warms up my heart.
Did you want to? You went to a few different homes yourself. Did you want to stay at those homes, or what? All of them, or did you want to kind of like, this is not for me, or it kind of changed depending on the family?
Well, to be truth be told, when I was in the homes, I never wanted to move. There were some homes that I really wanted to get away from, and those homes, it seems like I was staying there forever. It seemed like the days would, get blurred, or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I wanted to be stable. I wanted to have somewhere to call home. I didn't want to keep on getting bounced around. Every time I got bounced around, it was a new thing that I had, a new school, a new doctor, a new, new possible foster brothers and sisters, and all of that I had to experience and get used to. And it was draining. It was very discouraging.
How'd you deal with it at the time? I mean, I know I had a lot of trouble with it, and I would isolate a lot, and I would just kind of get buried in the schoolwork, I guess. But it was hard to make friends. At first, I would make friends, but then you would leave, and that was very heartbreaking when you made friends and then you had to leave.
Well, actually, Steve, I'm glad that you asked that question, because I really didn't deal with it. I ran from it. I didn't even know that it was an issue until I got older. I didn't know all the trauma that I endured until I was able to see things in hindsight. And when I looked over my life, what I did was I tried to place things in my life that will take my mind off of things. I actually got into trouble. And I wasn't a troubled or a child that like did a lot of bad things, but I did things that really possibly could have, been better, if I would have thought about it prior to. And one of the things that also I realize is that in foster care, there's, times where, it's evident that a child needs, some kind of therapy. And I think all foster children at one point in time should have some kind of therapy, despite of what level of trauma they've been in. But in my case, I went through an extreme amount of, and I should have had therapy. But the only person who really helped me with that was my grandmother. My grandmother was very in tune, and this is totally against for my cultural background. What we are supposed to be about is, therapy. A lot of times you hear about it being swept underneath the rug and everything else, because nobody should talk about it. It's like a hush thing. Whatever happened traumatically should be kept secret, kept to yourself, and no one knew how to deal with it. Well, my grandmother was the opposite of that, and she would put me in therapy. However, the foster parents didn't have, it seemed like they didn't have those resources, or they didn't have the connections and know-how. And so that brings me to a question of, when you're becoming a foster parent, what are the reasons that that you become foster parents? What do you think the reasons are, Steve?
Well, as we look on the screen, because they want to become parents, they want to do something good. I mean, they were maybe involved in foster care themselves, so you have to have that niche. You have to have that passion, because I have never been a foster parent, and it's kind of a void for me. And I think it's something I want to do, because I think it'll bring me full circle to do it. It's interesting because I've done these shows for 10 years now, different shows. And it's just recently I actually started talking about the foster care system, and I rarely have talked about myself and my own journey. So sometimes timing is everything. So I think experiencing some trauma when you were younger in the foster care system or adversity is a big component to it. And I think you have to have it in your heart. And I think you have to really understand that as a foster parent, it's the here and now. It might not be a forever thing. You have to be okay with change and with saying goodbye. Beginnings and endings is critical, because if you're not good with that, it's going to be very difficult.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that, Steve. I know that, in my mind, and I'm not a foster parent either, and I've never been. And I don't know if I want to be, because I have 5 children, but I do, see myself as being something else. And I'll get to that in a minute, later on in the show. But, one of the things that I inspired me to do this show is because, number one, I've been in foster care, and I know what happens in the foster care system. I know the ups and downs and everything else that people go through. And the thing is that a lot of times, um, people see those struggles too. Like they may have went to school with somebody that was in foster care, or they know somebody that was in foster care. Maybe possibly their own parents fostered a child. And so they decided at the end of the day, well, if I could give my love, if I could give my kindness to a child, that would be the greatest thing in the world. And so, there's many reasons why, people go into foster care, go into fostering a child. And also another reason, it also helps, financially. It's not like you're doing it alone. A lot of times you may think that, oh, how am I going to support this child? I do have the heart. I do have the mind. I do have the spirit to do it, but how am I going to support this child? And so, just in as of August 2022, the Commonwealth of Virginia, the breakdown for the maintenance of a child was 0 through 4 was $486. 5 through 12 was $568, and 13 and over was $721. So those finances could help for you to be able to take care of the child properly. Also, clothing allowance, 0 through 4 got $315 a year, and 5 through 12 got $394, and 13 and over got $473. California, California is expensive. I mean, I don't know which one is more expensive, California or New York, but both of them are expensive. But let's go with California today. They in between 1,000 to 2,609 per month to help take care and foster a child. I feel like that a lot of times when people are thinking about it, finances come up a lot. And they're like, well, how am I going to support this child? Life is not always easy.
I mean, those statistics are very important for us to see that, because clearly it's not a money-making thing here. I mean, obviously, it's to supplement the upbringing of a child. And I think that sometimes people get in it for the wrong reasons, which could be financially, driven. But I think there are benefits of becoming a foster parent, and there's a lot of benefits for it. And what you're bringing up are those things that are given to each foster parent, as far as helping and funding that young person to grow up. This is Fostering Legacies. We're here every Monday night from 8 to 9 p.m. We apologize. We got off to a late start tonight. That's Denise. I'm Steve. We're on different Cablevision outlets, so you got to check your local listings for that. We're hoping to become on the radio real soon, so we're going to really target different audiences out there. So the last couple of weeks, we've been kind of getting to know each other and knowing our new audience here. But I think you bring up a great point as far as statistically, the breakdown of foster parents and what they bring in, and the financial support that county offers.
Yes. And you know what? Let's just go just a little bit deeper into the finances. I know that, for me, because of all the foster homes that I've been in, I've been to, I don't know, 11 or 12. I lost count. I added one last month and now I'm confused. So, but I've been in quite a few foster homes, and you could really tell the difference in between a foster home that was doing it because they loved what they did and they really truthfully had the heart for it, compared to a foster home that was doing it just for the monies. And then let me just be clear about that. Even that goes even deeper, because it may even seem like at the time with my young mind that they were just doing it because they felt like they could get a check every month from me, but maybe they just didn't have the tools. Maybe they did not understand and have the resources in how to really rear up a child, how to cultivate a child, what exactly was in it for the child when the child came. They may not have had those things and understood those things from the beginning. And so that's why I think it's very important for us to know what a child goes through before they, get into the system, and even while they're in the system, even while they're in your home. Taking into foster care through the eyes of a child is very important.
Being taken from place to place and being sent to a whole new different city and a whole new different family and people that you've never met before, it's a really confusing experience. You just feel torn away from your community. It's like, just imagine that you were going to work one day and it's just a normal day and you're on your way to work and everything is as it's supposed to be, and you watered your dog and you drank your coffee and you tell your kids goodbye and you go to work, and then the police show up at your job and they say, okay, we're moving you to a totally different city and you don't know anybody, and you can't call your family and you can't call any of your friends, and you need to leave your phone here and you can't take any of your stuff with you. We'll figure that out later. And they just pick you up and they transport you to a totally different place, and then tell you to just wait in this room for a little while because we're going to figure things out. And then they come and bring you a little sack luncheon, and it's just a few more hours and we're going to figure this out. Just here, play with this little toy, okay, put this little ring on a hook. And then they send you to these These really well-meaning people but you have no idea who they are, and their house smells different, and maybe they have a dog, and they have hardwood floors, you've only ever had carpet, like everything about the experience is alien to you. And all you want is to be able to contact the people that you have a bond with. It's a very disrupting experience. And in a lot of ways, it's a traumatic experience because all of these things are unexpected, and suddenly everything in your world that you felt was safe and secure and concrete is not. And having those ideas shattered is really difficult, especially as a child, because you need that security. You need to know that here's my bed, I can come home to it, and this is where it's gonna be, and that's gonna be okay. Or here's my mom, and no matter what, she's gonna be there for me, and I can just call her and she'll show up, and that's gonna be okay. When you can't believe that anymore, it starts to make you question, well, what can you believe? Who can you trust? What is a for sure thing? You begin to stop valuing certain things. You stop valuing relationships because they're not concrete and they're not going to be there forever. And you stop investing yourself in certain things. And all of a sudden, stability isn't really important to you. Having goals isn't important to you. You are concerned with where are you going to sleep tonight? Are you going to be safe? Who are these people? Doing a simple thing like taking a shower in a stranger's home is a very disconcerting experience. So the more that you get moved around, the more trauma that you endure in that. Every single move is a traumatic experience. So you can see the consequences later on. And really you can see the consequences pretty early on. As a child who's in foster care, I exhibited signs of not being able to trust other people, of not wanting to connect. I had some really antisocial behavior. I also had a deep dislike for government agencies, for the police, for social workers. Like, I did not believe that they were on my team, because when I'm telling you that this is what I need and you're just not listening and you're saying, well, this is what we feel you need, I can't trust you any longer. As a child, you do not have the capacity to forward think. You are not able to, and scientifically your brain isn't even wired to do that yet. And so the decisions that you're making are pure emotional. When you're dealing with a traumatic situation and when the people around you don't have the tools to help you deal with that, the decisions that you're making are pure instinctive. And so I just know that if I have this incredible amount of sadness and this incredible amount of fear and I don't know what to do with it, well, maybe I should just run away. Maybe I should do drugs. Maybe I should get in fights. Maybe I should cuss out my foster parents. There's all kinds of different things that happen. None of those things were planned. All of those things were unintended consequences because I didn't know how to deal with the original emotions that I was facing. And so I really just want people to understand that these kids just need help. I don't understand how there's so much funding for foster care benefits, for adoption benefits, for emergency shelters. There's so much funding for that, but there's no funding for family preservation. And had my mom just had a little bit of help, had she have had enough money to buy her own vehicle, had she had enough money to relocate herself from an abusive situation, had she not had to depend on men in the first place for any kind of financial stability, I don't believe that she would have made some of the decisions that she would have made. I don't believe that she would have struggled as a mother, because my mom is a good mom. She just had some hardships and she had nobody to help her. And so I don't understand how there's so much funding to take us away, but there's no funding to keep us there.
Wow, that was, that brought up a lot for me, because the things that she described is exactly true. I remember when I was younger, when you're just first getting into foster care, yes, it's traumatic. For me, it was traumatic. It was definitely traumatic. I didn't understand what was going on, but it wasn't as traumatic as when I got older and I understood. And so I remember when I was younger, I don't know, 3, 4, something like that. And I got taken away from my mother again. And I wound up in an emergency foster home in the middle of the night. I don't know what time it was. It might have been 11 o'clock at night. It might have been, 3 o'clock in the morning. Who knows? But the thing I remember is that they had pancakes there waiting for me. And I ate the pancakes. I That was like a happy moment for me. I was like, "Ooh, pancakes." As a kid, that was a highlight for me. I didn't know any better. I didn't know what just really transpired. I knew my mom wasn't with me anymore, but I had pancakes. So it was great. But then when I got transitioned again, and I think I was about 10 or 11, I think maybe 11, and I went from a home, and it was basically the foster parent. Things had happened, some issues had happened, and they could no longer care for their foster children. And so I got transitioned into another home, and the person that I got transitioned to, she was an amazing, lovely woman. She did pass away last year. Her name was Minister Idola Davis, and I was like super standoffish. I was like, she was trying to see what I like. She was asking me questions, and I was like putting my feet on the dashboard of her car, and not listening and everything else because I didn't want to hear it. By that time, I think I was probably in my 8th foster home. I was done. I was like, I don't want to hear this. The year that you're going to disappear like everybody else, I'm not going to know you, a year or two from now. And so, just like with what the woman said in that video, it's like, I'm going to mess up in school. I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to get in trouble. And that's what I started to do because I felt like no one cared. Steve, have you ever had any, could you relate to that?
Yeah, you know what? A couple of things that brought to my attention. First, you mentioned counseling earlier in the show, and this young lady who is very passionate and inspirational at the same time. That was a great video choice because I think it takes you behind the scenes and the mind of a young person. I remember going to one foster home. I was separated from my younger brother, and this foster home wanted to go to a trip to the Grand Canyon as soon as I got there. And I remember sitting at dinner with them the first time. They said, "Oh, we're going to have this great trip. It was the summertime. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon for 2 weeks." And I did not want to go. I did not want to go. They presented it to me in June. They were going to go in August. And they were shocked by that. But I felt that if I were to go away, first of all, the chances of getting back with my mom I would lose that if I went to a different state. And number two, I would never get reconnected with my brother. So I didn't want to go. So what they did, they brought me to a psychologist for counseling to determine why I wouldn't want to go to this great trip to the Grand Canyon. And I remember going to the psychologist and all the story, he would ask me to tell a story all the time. And all my stories were about animals and how they would, be on a farm and they didn't want to leave the farm. And, it was all, obviously relative to what I was going through. But yeah, I can relate to it because there's different things foster parents are try to do and want to do because they're pure love. But sometimes it takes that little bit more to really understand what that child is going through. So in that situation, I didn't go to the Grand Canyon and I went to a shelter. That family went to the Grand Canyon and I went to a shelter for 3 weeks. Now, that wasn't a great situation either, but at least I felt like I was that much closer to being reunited with my mom. And I think what I like about what she said at the end, why can't there be more monies to go into keep families together?
Yes.
Men or women that are dealing with mental illness or they can't go to counseling. Why? If you don't have the proper health insurance, that you're not going to have mental health care, it's going to lag behind. And you want to keep those families together, but more money is spent on the foster care system, understandably so. But there's got to be more efforts with those homes that are really challenged.
You're absolutely right about that. I love the fact that, you and I both saw that where's the tools? There's a lack of tools, and it's on both sides. It's not just on the parents that have lost the children for whatever reason. Maybe, of course, they lack some kind of tools, resources of some sort, some help, some assistance, some health insurance, but also on the when you get a child coming into foster care, you have to have those same things. And a lot of times there is not that much. I know that there's so many things that go into the foster care services and the different agencies that you could choose and everything else. And unfortunately, it's so much to talk about in this show, but let's move on because I will be here all day talking about tools and resources. But what I really want to dig into, what I really want to know is how can a person that really wants to start in, seeking out how to become a foster parent, how can they get started? How can they put their best foot forward in doing that? And so I went on a search and I found some ways that they could get started. And one of the ways that I saw that was amazing, and I think this should be the first thing that you should even think of before you get a child, is know what kind of parent you want to be, what good you believe you will be able to bring to a child's life. Know those things first, and then once you know those things, I feel like it's so much more easier for everything else to fall in place.
I think that's true, Denise. Before you go further, because sometimes when people have this vision, this general vision, you got to say, okay, what is your goal? Why are you doing this first? That is the first step, because you can have a vision, but what is the goal to achieve that vision? That's pretty much what you're saying, right?
Exactly. What is the goal? What is the goal and what you want to achieve? Because at the end of the day, we all have, I'm quite sure there's not a single person that has not had like this fairy tale life that they have imagined in their head, whether it be, just a little small smidget of an imagination. Maybe they just wanted to roll around in a BMW and that was their dream, or maybe they wanted to live in a castle, who knows, but they had an imagination of what they decided they wanted their life to look like. And so you have to also imagine what kind of parent you want to be. What does that look like? What would a family unit with a foster child, because that will be your family, what would that look like for you? And then I think that the second thing that I found is that how do you choose your agency? I didn't know this. And I'm even on this road, and I'm so grateful for being on this road because I'm learning so many things. And I'm hoping that it will help somebody out where you are, because agencies are very important. Every agency, you have your state agency, which is just the bottom line. That's where all of the emergency calls come into. 3 o'clock in the morning wake ups for somebody to get a child, just like what happened with me. And then you have agencies that are more so private owned, where they have a certain particular philosophy, a vibe, a way of doing things. Of course, they have to also follow the rules and regulations, but they may offer more training, like trauma training, which I think is very important.
That's a key factor, because I mean, there's a lot of agencies out there, some public and some private agencies. You really have to investigate which you're going to lock into, and I think that is something that is not understood. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to become foster parents, and I guess the first thing is to, you know, pick out that goal, figure out that vision, but also at the same time start to do research about these different agencies.
Exactly. It's really important. I went on a research. I was researching a lot, and it really gets deep. in the different agencies, and also the different ways they could assist. And then also going through the process of getting licensed and everything else, it's like, you have to know what agencies will pay for what, and then also what agencies don't pay for is what they offer, balancing out,
And
and
it's
so
okay. It's okay to ask questions, right? And to kind of
there you
be
go.
absorb that. Don't be passive. This is something you're eager to do. You're motivated. You're passionate to do. So ask those questions. And then I'm sure there's going to be training or orientations that are out there that you need to take part in, which is mandatory probably with some of the agencies. But that's something you might want to do anyway because you get that feedback from other potential parents and existing foster parents that it could kind of be a support system.
And that's what we all need. We all need, I don't care what family unit you have. The best family unit is a family unit that is supported.
Right.
And you know a lot of times, that I've seen a lot of times in my journey in foster care where there was not as much support. And when I say support, it's, you could have a lot of people around you, but if the blind is leading the blind, it doesn't help. And so the support I'm talking about is support where you could find resources, where you could gain knowledge and understanding and training, that will benefit you as a human being, so that you could also benefit the child that you receive. Very important support system. The next thing that you do after after you go to the orientation, after you check out and figure out what agency is for you. And let me just tell you this, I didn't know this, but this is something that I learned. If you don't like the agency you were originally, got, obtained, or went through, you could get another one. There's not a rule. I don't believe that there is a rule that states that you cannot move on to a different agency if you are no longer aligned. I feel like that we all come from different backgrounds and cultures and beliefs, and those should be honored. And so, what's best for when you receive the child is for you to go through an agency that you are more aligned with, that will help you to receive the child that also is aligned with you. And
Right.
so, figuring out the agency, also asking questions. Do not be afraid. Like, I ask a lot of questions and I am not afraid to say that or ashamed. Also, once you choose the agency, go to the orientation, meet people, get support, even try to see if there's a support group or start one yourself. For I'm telling you, let me just tell you as a parent, and this is, because I have 5 kids, there was many of times where I wished that I had a support group that I could go to and talk about the what are they called, the chapters of life of parenting, the chronicles of life of parenting, and really get advice and really see if anybody else was going through what I was going through. I know a lot of times that we feel like we're alone. We're the only ones that are having this situation, this trauma, this issue with whatever, with our children, with ourselves, whatever the case may be. And it can be isolating. Getting into a support group can help lift you up, help keep you balanced, help keep you aligned so that you could be the best person for yourself as well as the best parent for your child. So, yeah. So the next thing is completing a background check. You do have to do a background check because we want to make sure that these children are going to safe people. Now, mind you, background checks don't really cover everything. Sometimes people do things that they have not gotten caught for yet, but at the end of the day, at least that is another extra layer of safety that is put into place for these kids because they've already gone through a lot of trauma already. So that's another thing. Steve, what do you think about this? What do you
Yeah.
think are some other things that could be helpful?
Well, first of all, the background checks are very important, and if we can put that list back up so our viewers can see it there, the background checks are very, very important because you want to minimize, if not eliminate, any kind of challenging situations that are coming up with the different families. And I think that's very important even within the agency. So I think that research is so very vital.
Yes, research, exactly. Researching is very vital. And there's another thing that also happens. And I know that this seems like a long list, but you do want to know what you're getting yourself into before you get in there. You want to know, you want to know what avenues to take, and you don't want to really take the avenue that is not best for you. So you want to be completely equipped. And so I was glad to, help, get you started on the right path. So completing a home study, and I know that home studies may sound foreign to you and everything else, but home studies are just really basically where they do kind of like a walkthrough through your home to make sure that you meet the requirements. Do you meet the requirements of becoming a foster parent? Does your home meet the requirements of becoming a foster parent? A lot of times people want to foster a child, but we want to make sure that we're placing children into environments that are going to be conducive for them to grow up and thrive, as well as for them to be in better situations than what they came from. And so I really love the idea of a home study. One of the things that I do want to add is that depending upon the agency, and these are questions that you should also raise with the agency that you're thinking about going to, is depending upon the agency, they could assist you with walking through and giving you guidance as to what you might need to do, change, rearrange before your actual home study walkthrough. So check with the agency to see what kind of resources and guidance and assistance do they give you compared to just going it all without that backing, without that support. So another thing that it can be very beneficial to know is, making sure that you know the preferences of the child that you want. I know that this sounds strange, but at the same time, because you are wanting to be a parent, if you are wanting to be a parent, it's really important for you to be real with yourself. And I know that being real, like, being honest and forthcoming with yourself. What are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with different cultures? Are you comfortable? Because if you're comfortable with different cultures, are you willing to explore that particular child's culture to also make them comfortable and make them feel, inclusive and loved? I know that there was a show called, my goodness, I can't even think of the show, but it was a wonderful show. This Is Us. That's right. And there was a couple that had they actually were pregnant with triplets. One of them passed away, and a child was adopted. Was actually in the hospital that they had their children at, and so that they adopted that child. That child was actually an African American child, whereas they were Caucasians, and they raised him as their own. And I remember watching that show, and in that show, she did battle with the cultural differences, and he did as well. The child did as well. He had questions, he had concerns, he felt like, okay, well, I don't really know my identity as a human being. And so those are kind of questions that you should ask. Also, age limits. What ages do you feel comfortable with? You might not feel comfortable with a 15-year-old, or you might not feel comfortable with a 6-month-old. So you might want to ask those kinds of questions. And male or female, do you prefer male or female? These are things that you could ask the agency, that these are your preferences, and they should be able to honor those. And also, the last thing that I would say is to be patient. The foster, getting into foster care and, getting to know your child, or getting a child to know rather than, can take some time, especially if you want your preferences to be honored and if you want to be in complete alignment so you could give that child the best life as possible. So,
So I'm sorry. I think the goal for foster parents is reunification. Obviously, that the child is going to be there temporarily, and it's up to that family to really love and guide and support that child in their family. And I think that that's so very important. I think that's the intangibles of a family when a youngster comes into their home, because I know that youngster, they're being taken away from a situation that they don't want to be involved with, or taken away from a situation where they're being forced to leave their loved ones. So either way, you're dealing with trauma and adversity and challenges. So you really have to really try to understand and not come on too strong at the very beginning. You have to be patient, like you mentioned earlier. You have to be a good listener, but you also have to set those boundaries and formal patterns of the family, so that young person can really understand what they're need to do in life. So.
Absolutely right. And there's actually a video that really kind of depicts how foster care placements can harm a child's brain.
When a child enters foster care, that child has likely experienced instability, causing a disruption in brain development. Foster care may further add to the damage, especially in children who are moved from family to family.
Do I think, as scientists say, that multiple foster placements affect the brain chemistry? Yeah, 100%, definitely. I know when I think about where I am in life compared to my friends around the same age who grew up with semi-normal families or more normal than multiple houses, there's definitely just some emotional differences and some just overall mentality differences on life, where we want to be, where we want to go.
There is still debate among scientists on how much damage is coming from abuse and neglect or multiple placements. But researchers say forcing a child to endure those placements can disrupt the neural connections in their frontal lobes. Most affected, researchers say, are the brain's prefrontal cortex and the HPA axis. The prefrontal cortex manages a person's inhibitory controls. It manages self-control, basically the ability to make good choices, and holding back from making bad ones. Difficulty with inhibitory controls can lead to school failure, discipline issues, and often causes a child to be moved to another family.
Oh yeah, I've gone through multiple counselors. I've been given multiple diagnoses, depression, anxiety. All kinds of different things. I have gotten to the point where I've accepted them, but I try not to let that necessarily define me. Sometimes it's hard. I feel like for me, the anxiety is worse. I go through those phases of depression, but I feel like the anxiety is worse, and I can easily let that just take over and almost blame or use it to blame it on why I'm doing something.
Researchers have also found differences in the way foster kids handle stress. An area known as the HPA axis is responsible for regulating the hormone cortisol to handle stressful situations. In a normal cycle, when you wake up, your body will have a high level of cortisol. The process starts off with the hypothalamus sending a signal to the pituitary gland. Then the pituitary gland sends its signal through the body to the adrenal glands, where it releases cortisol to the rest of the body to get ready for the day. By bedtime, cortisol levels will drop close to zero. Foster kids who have endured repeated trauma have their HPA axes thrown off kilter. Their bodies were in constant stress levels that pushed their HPA axis too hard and too fast. The result is a downshift in cortisol. The cortisol levels become flat. When they wake up, it's low, and at bedtime, it's not low enough. In children, a dysregulated HPA system can lead to PTSD, anxiety, depression, and disruptive disorders. Foster care researchers believe there are ways to reverse the effects by providing foster kids with a safe, nurturing, permanent home.
Find them a place to stay until then. I'd rather get attached for a small period of time and understand what love and happiness is for a small period of time than repeatedly get ripped from something that I feel safe in.
Wow, that was very informative. I think that it puts into perspective on what happens to a child's brain when going from place to place. Steve, what do you think about that?
No, I definitely believe and agree with everything that's was that video that presented, because it's cognitively it takes its toll on the youngster when you're not stable. I mean, the emotionality of it, the trauma that's not resolved from leaving one home, going into another home, then leaving that home, the transition, the transient behavior really affects the patterns of lifestyles for that youngster, but as they grow older too. And if you don't resolve it, those things are going to repeat itself in adulthood. Those transitions, those challenges in establishing relationships will continue. And that's why maybe, if maybe in shows coming up, we could look at when the child reaches adulthood and they transition into adulthood, and how those relationships established and maintained in life. Do they stay married with their partners? Do they divorce? Do they have legal troubles? We need to do more work with that. And I think the work that we're going to do, not just with this show, but in the book that we write and the camps that we have and the in services that will be given, I think that'll really shine a light, not just by us, by other professionals around the country.
Exactly. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. And really quickly, I just want to go over these things about how trauma can show up differently in each child's life and what can you do about it. And so one of the first things you could do is obtain some sort of trauma training. Very, very important and very, very helpful. The second thing, be an active participant in healing your own trauma. We got to heal ourselves first before we can help heal other people. Seek a support group. You could gain friends, you could gain ideas, you could gain support, so many things from a support group. Be kind to yourself during this process. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're still a human doing life. Be patient and understanding with the child. And number 6 is make sure the agency that you are with is giving you the support that you need, and that you're still aligned with the agency. And never be afraid to seek another agency if you are now not aligned.
Wow, that is crucial to understand, because we all have trauma. We've all dealt with trauma. We all hopefully have resolved that trauma, but there are a lot of folks out there that have unresolved trauma. I think what you're highlighting is very, very important for us to understand, because make no doubt about it. There is trauma when you're transitioning from home to home, at a notice, a quick notice, and after an adverse situation that occurs within the family. It could be due to mental illness, could be due to addiction, domestic violence, death, homelessness, all these kind of things that affect families. I think it's so very important to understand the trauma and how to cope with it. Now we have like this little word thing with the heart with words in it. We're gonna pop it up on the screen. What's the first word that you see there, Denise?
Child.
Child. Okay. I see hope. So you think a child with the heart next to it. What do you think of?
Wow, that the child has a heart too, and we need to respect that. We don't
That's
want to
right.
break their heart.
That's right. And I see hope, because it's all about hope. When you go from one home to another home, you're hoping that this is the last one. You're hoping that you're going to find that love. And the foster parents are hoping that they could blend in this family. And it's all about hope. And I think we have to put the child in the driver's seat. We have to understand that child, and we all have to be hopeful.
Yes. Oh, yes. And I love that, because that's what we're all about. That's why we're here, is to be hopeful and give hope. And
That's
so,
right. And there's a program in Florida, Joshua House, that we've been talking about over and over again on our shows, that we're looking to get some donations for, and we have some possible donors. And these are some of the things that Joshua House is looking for. There's a wish list: clothes, shoe sizes, toys, school supplies, laptops, computers, game systems, journal. Instead of money, we're going to look at gift cards. We're going to change that graphic. And I believe that you have some contacts out there that might be interested in supporting Joshua House.
yeah, so I do definitely have some people that are very interested in sponsoring some children. And that just was near and dear to my heart, because I wasn't expecting it. And, I always love to expect the unexpected, especially the good surprises, not the bad ones. but so, yeah, we're getting people really in tuned and involved in wanting to sponsor children. Christmas for a lot of kids is a big thing. And even though that I don't really particularly celebrate the holidays traditionally, I know how important it is to children. And I want to give back.
That's right. We both want to give back, and this is what this show is all about. Our show has come to an end. We're going to see each other next Monday. We are so thankful that you chose to watch us. Please like, share it, make some comments. It's all about the children, and it's all about hope. Thanks, Denise.
Thanks, Steve. See you next time.
Bye.
I know sometimes you're feeling lost. It's hard to find your place in it all, but you don't have to feel